On a fishing lake near Darlington, a remote-controlled research ship sets sail. This aquatic drone tests water quality, and it's got a very important job to do, because pollution in the Tees Valley waterways have already led to restrictions on house building across the area. And one local river in particular is at the heart of a political row. The Skern runs through County Durham all the way down to the North Yorkshire border, but it's here in Darlington where it's causing concern. There are plans to build thousands of new houses here, and some people think that's too many for the sewage system to cope with, and that would mean more pollution in this river.
We're crossing the Skern at the weir, and this is the point where the overflow comes in.
And it's aromatic as well?
Yes, it is, yes.
This is retired sewage worker Ken Madison. He's seen build-ups of diluted sewage here, and he thinks the system needs updating to meet future housing demands.
Darlington has had a sewage treatment works rebuilt in 1939. It's called Stress Home Sewage Treatment Works, and the population at that particular time was 50,000 people. Our current population is around about 107,000.
The housing plan's been in place since 2016. Local Greens say successive Labour and Conservative council leaders haven't taken the impact of new housing on the sewage system seriously enough.
The sewage capacity is already over the limit, and they're having to discharge in dry weather, which tells me that there's been a lack of long-term planning by the water companies. When you've planned 10,000 new homes for that length of time, someone has taken their eye off the ball.
Northumbrian Water say they are working with Darlington Council to assess the impact more housing will have on the sewage system. The town's Conservative MP says he's met the firm and he's reassured.
Taking on board these serious concerns that people have been raising, I have spoken with Northumbrian Water, who have provided me with reassurance and have pointed to their business plan that there is sufficient capacity in the system to cope with new properties being built in Darlington. There is huge pressure on housing here in this town, and we need to build more homes.
Darlington Council says the Environment Agency hasn't raised concerns about its house building plans. Labour runs the local authority. The party says the town needs good new housing, but the government should be investing in the infrastructure that supports it.
It has been a crying shame this summer that families in the North East haven't been able to go and swim in the sea or in the rivers when they want to because of worried about bacteria from human faeces. That is unbearably horrible and it needs to change. The Labour government would change that.
But a Labour council wants to build lots of houses here. Surely that's only going to make the problem worse.
So I think some protest parties would have you believe that it's a binary choice between house building and protecting the environment. That is not the case.
Nearly 10,000 new homes are planned for Darlington. With political scrutiny about the impact that will have on the Skern, this pollution-seeking boat is bound to be busy.
David McMillan reporting. Jill Perry, there's a balance to be struck here. We need more homes, but obviously we need to deal with pollution and prevent it. Are we getting the balance right here?
Well, I think clearly, historically, we haven't been getting the balance right. And, for example, in my area, in Seaton, near Workington, 180 houses planned. The treatment works that would service those houses has already overflowed in 21 and 22 into the sea, into the Solway Firth, getting on for 1,000 hours. And that clearly is unacceptable. Adding another 180 houses just makes the whole thing worse. But United Utilities, give them their due. They have been doing things. For example, a village in my ward, Plumland, hit the headlines in the Times last year because the waste treatment works there had overflowed so many times and the River Ellen was so polluted. But just before Christmas, United Utilities installed 2 big tanks to take overflow in storm conditions. They're not things of beauty, and it's obviously, they're on the surface with a pump, and it's obviously an interim solution. But if they can do it there, they can do it everywhere.
Okay.
And that is what we should be demanding as an interim solution while they build
more pressure on the
much better
to do that. Okay.
sewage treatment works.
Josh McAllister, we heard Lola McAvoy there. There is a sense here that Labour wants it all ways. And what it says it's going to build hundreds of thousands of new homes. At the same time, it says, oh no, but there's, you know, we won't cause a problem with sewage. You can't square the circle, can you?
Well, it says something about the state of politics in 2024 that we've got to the point where we can't believe that we can have new houses and enough houses for people and clean rivers. Of course, those things are achievable at the same time. We need to see big reform. One of the things that Labour set out is that we want to give new powers to Ofwat to make sure that, first of all, we monitor all exits for discharge, and that's done by an independent body, not by the water companies themselves. We want to see that bosses of water companies are criminally liable for any illegal discharges. That's something that's not happened at the moment. And we want to make sure that investment ramps up by those water companies. So that we
until
can
those are done, you can't just plough ahead with every housing development, can you? Which is the impression Labour's giving.
No, you can't just plough ahead with every housing development, but there are things in a planning system, not to do with sewage works, that stand in the way of sensible steps to build new homes. And actually, you know, what's happening within the Conservative Party, the drama on the backbenches there, that's the thing deciding whether or not Britain can get on and build. And that's not acceptable for the country.
Okay. Well, Roberta Whedon-Sands, it's a terrible indictment of government stewardship, isn't it, that we're facing all these problems with this difficult choice between sewage and homes after 14 years of Conservative government?
Well, I think part of the issue, I mean, for me, this is personal. I live in Scarborough, and our South Bay is one of the bays that is classed as having a poor water quality
I think
rating.
more than 70 times there was sewage into that bay.
Absolutely.
Between March and September.
Absolutely unacceptable. The point is that we're now following some brilliant campaigns by experienced campaigners who brought attention to this and the work the government has been doing. We're now actually able to monitor all of these sewage overflows, storm overflows that's happening. We know where it's happening, whereas in 2010, only 7% of those overflows were monitored. So it was happening, but we were talking about it less because the government was failing to invest, at the Labour government at that point.
OK.
But the point is...
14 years, there's no question, there's a big problem with sewage going into waterways, isn't it, on your government's watch?
We're moving in the right direction. I think more needs to be done, absolutely. And I hope that the government continues to move things in that direction. As we heard from Jill, absolutely, I think we're all in agreement that the water companies need to invest more. We have a Victorian utility system that needs upgrading.
Are you putting enough pressure on them?
I think that the pressure is building. And we've seen from what Jill mentioned, Yorkshire Water have also, in Scarborough, announced more investment. The government is requiring them to invest billions over the next few years. But as you pointed out,
Richard... The point is, it's us that's going to pay for this in our bills, isn't it? And I think, you know, Yorkshire Water...
Under Labour's plans...
we're going to have to spend to sort out the problems.
Under Labour's plans, if they get in... They're throwing away the principle of the polluter pays. And by putting all the pressure on the water companies, they will just pass it down to the taxpayer.
Let's bring Jill Perry in.
I think there's a fundamental contradiction if public services are owned by private companies, because the first duty of a private company is to make a profit for their shareholders. The first duty of a public service provider is to provide a public service for the public.
Would it solve these problems to bring all these companies into public ownership?
Well, absolutely, because when your public service company makes a profit in a profit-making area, it can then subsidise the less profitable areas. It isn't beholden to its shareholders.
OK, well, Josh McCarthy, Labour seems to have gone cold on a plan that did, at one point, back the idea of bringing these water companies into public ownership. It doesn't anymore. But what about this point that Roberta made, that it's going to end up with the bill payers with your solution?
Not true. Consumers at the moment are seeing their bills going up anyway, and water is dirtier. So, you know, the Tory government have overseen a position where we've now got essentially lots of rivers and bits of sea and lakes that are essentially open water sewers, and we're paying more for it. They inherited in 2010 rivers and waterways, which the Environment Agency themselves judged as some of the best in our history. So it's simply not true to say that Labour would pass the bill to consumers. We want to make sure polluters pay. And when challenged on this, the Conservative Party nationally have been challenged on this a number of times by Labour about this claim of consumers having an increase